of what has been done before. It's been a course that has been held offline, and now for the first time going up online, you can register and get to hear from experts who are going to help you get skills for digital entrepreneurship and for the digital economy. This range from social media advertising to web and content design to SEO marketing. The panel that was sitting there during this launch was a wealth of experience, from PR at Bolt also to other of the alumnus who have been there at Digify-Pro. So how can you register, and how can you get yourself a few of these skills, or if you already have them, how do you sharpen, how do you leverage them? And one key takeaway that I got from that launch was data, which is something that is important for the digital economy. How do you use analytics for your own business or to position yourself for the market in terms of employment, which is the key issue that Digify-Pro is trying to eradicate: youth unemployment. We're going to play that for you in a few. But later on, of course, the newspaper review section is coming back here, and we have a panel discussion with Dennis Omondi, who is a journalist here at KUTV, and also accompanied by Nick Mwadime Mwangi, who is an MKUSA official. He has been there for quite some time now. He's also been on this show. We're going to have a look at a couple of those stories which are already hinted earlier on. The National Dialogue Committee, the report that is tabled there to Raila and President William Ruto, the resolutions that you can expect from that. 11 parastatals have also been earmarked for sale, and the public is being invited to give out their views by 15th of December. Some of those parastatals are supposed to raise money for the government and also to invite private investors into this space. Is this the right move? Some experts are warning that it could be one of those means on structural adjustment programs, or SAPs, by the IMF. These sentiments are being supported by David Ndi on Twitter. So which way? The government is saying it's trying to encourage privatization and also investment by the private members of the public, but also on the other hand, it could be a ploy by IMF in terms of the loans that we are taking from them. What do the experts and what does my panel have to say? That's the discussion we're having here later on, so don't go too far. Biashara Tuesday is still on. Coming back to you with all the updates that are coming from KUTV Newsroom, so don't go too far. All right, now begin with the cabinet, who have sanctioned several of interventions, including scaling up the scope of humanitarian assistance for more than 50,000 households, especially those in the arid and semi-arid counties. This is according to an address issued on Monday by State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed regarding cabinet's recommendations on disaster management. Cabinet has further directed that the National Treasury release an additional 10 billion Kenyan shillings to county governments this week to help in managing the floods disaster.
Cabinet has come up with policies that seek to enhance national resilience and preparedness of future weather and climate-driven disasters, and to further empower states to prevent loss of lives.
We will enhance our national resilience and preparedness for future weather and climate-driven disasters, as well as better empower the state to prevent further loss of lives, destruction of property, and interruptions to our way of life arising from the El Nino situation.
This according to an address issued by the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed. Mohammed further states that preliminary assessment of the severity of the flood situation highlighted that 38 out of 47 counties are in the alarm stage, characterized by flash floods, general flooding in low-lying plains, rivers bursting their banks, landslides, loss of livestock, and destruction of farmland and infrastructure.
Now, as part of the preliminary assessment of the severity of the situation across the country, the meeting noted that 38 out of our nation's 47 counties are within the alarm stage, a stage characterized by flash floods, general flooding in low-lying plains.
Cabinet further noted that 76 lives have been lost to the El Nino disaster, while 35,000 households have been displaced, with the most severely affected areas being in the northern, eastern and coastal regions.
Cabinet noted with regret that we have lost 76 Kenyans to El Nino, while 35,000 households have been displaced. The most severely affected areas are in the northeastern, eastern, and coast regions specifically, but of course, there are more counties.
According to the report, the state had allocated 7 billion Kenyan shillings, with which it is implementing various programs to address the plight of Kenyans across the country, among which will be applied for humanitarian response.
The resources committed will be applied for humanitarian response, including distribution and supply of medical commodities, food and non-food items, rehabilitation of infrastructure, and resettlement of displaced families.
The state's intervention is being undertaken in a joint effort between the national and county governments, and which incorporates the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Youth Service in operation with the Kenya Red Cross Society. Through aircraft made available by the Kenya Defence Forces, medical supplies have been airlifted to most vulnerable counties. Israel Omwai, KUTV.
Condolences to all those who've lost their lives in this El Nino occurrences, and of course we're hoping that there's going to be relief to whoever is stranded across those counties. Now, in politics, Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has stated that the Azimio report on the bipartisan talks will be released on Wednesday, with a meeting expected to happen on Thursday to give the way forward on the proposals. Edward Nyamu has this report.
Raila Odinga held a rally in Nyamira County to continue his campaign of registering more ODM members. Raila has hence criticized the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki for increasing the registration fee of identity cards. According to Odinga, Azimio members of parliament will move a motion in parliament to prevent the implementation.
Lakini kitu kingine ambayo tunataka lazima serikali ifanye, kupeana vijana vitambulisho. Vitambulisho zipewe bila malipo yoyote. Maana kuna vijana wengi sana wamehitimu miaka 18 anaona vitambulisho, wanatembea kama wahalifu, unashikwa pale hawana kitambulisho. Sasa kitambulisho ni haki ya kila Mkenya. Hiyo ndio thibitisho kama wewe ni Mkenya.
Additionally, Raila called out on President William Ruto, saying that taking more debt will disrupt the economy. Odinga has urged Ruto to find alternative ways since his government has no proper plan.
Sasa unaona juzi niliongea juu ya mambo ya wizi ya mafuta. Wanaleta kutoa kule ng'ambo na wanaiba pesa. Sasa hata mtihani. Siona mtihani vile imekuwa sasa. Simona ile skandal kwa mtihani. Ati watoto wa darasa moja wanapaka maksi moja kwa subject moja yote.
Concerning the proposals of the Bipartisan Talks Committee, Raila stated that the full report of Azimio members will be released on Wednesday before convening a meeting on Thursday with Azimio members of parliament to come up with the way forward.
Bado sisi hatujaketi chini ili tuhalalishe. Lakini sisi tutatoa taarifa juu ya hiyo ripoti siku ya Jumatano, yani kesho kutwa. Tutakuwa pamoja. Baadaye siku ya Alhamisi tutakuwa na mkutano ya wabunge wote wa Azimio, na tutatoa msimamo wetu kama Azimio siku hiyo.
At the same time, Kisii Governor Simba Arati asserted that he will not be intimidated by President Ruto's administration, saying that he will not leave the Azimio coalition. In addition, the Azimio members stated that they will not accept the bipartisan proposals unless they are addressing the issues of reducing the cost of living.
Mimi nataka niulize hii serikali, na nimewauliza, tulipiga kura ikaisha, wakabeba wakatoroka naye, na tumesema kwamba sawa yawe hivyo, lakini haja gani uue kijana eti kwa sababu yeye hayuko katika chama cha UDA? Askari wetu wa umma hapa sijui vile kuko kule Kisii wanatembezwa, ni kama hawana akili, kwa sababu wamewekwa uoga. Askari akikamata mwizi anapigwa transfer. Naomba tafadhali wewe Koome,
The return of the opposition leader comes at a time when the report of the bipartisan talks committee continue to stir mixed reactions from different government officials. Edward Nyamo, KUTV.
All right, that's what's happening in my own backyard of Kisii County. Let's take a look at this report of the National Dialogue Committee, which has continued to raise concerns among Kenyans, with many complaining about the lack of emphasis on the cost of living in the NADCO report. Have a look.
The lack of emphasis on the cost of living in the report was the major concern from many Kenyans, with a number of them saying that the current rise in taxes and price of commodities is the biggest problem that all Kenyans are encountering. This comes just a few days after the National Dialogue Committee released a report of their proposals, which they made after the long talks. Mixed reactions have emerged not only from the leaders but also among citizens.
Hiyo ripoti ijenisaidia sana, kwa maana ingefaa iongelewe, iangaliwe vitu iteremshwe chini na sio nusu, ndio tutasaidika, kwa maana hata kulipa karo imekuwa shida kwa sisi.
According to Nairobi residents, the important issue which should have been given priority in the report is the reduction of oil prices, claiming that if the price of oil decreases, then the cost of living will also decrease. However, some Azimio leaders, including the former Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa, declared not to abide with the report despite being a member of the committee, while President Ruto earlier expressed his agreement with the proposals and even congratulated the committee. Kenyans also feel that the negotiations were not entirely meant to benefit the common citizens, but in their opinion, they feel that the leaders who participated in the talks had their personal objectives. Derek Odhiambo, KUTV.
Elsewhere, President William Ruto has underscored that institutionalization of incentives, simplified processes, and funding scale-up will attract more investors and venture capital to Kenya's startups, therefore, and thereby catalyze the unlocking of the country's economic potential. The president was speaking during an official opening of the Kenya Innovation Week Commonwealth Edition in State House, Nairobi, where he also maintained that Kenya is building a globally competitive startup ecosystem by eliminating barriers to innovation. Listen in.
In a forum that has attracted global participation, President William Ruto today launched a 5-day Innovation Week at the Edge Convention Center in Nairobi. The forum, according to the president, comes at a time when the government is planning to transform the economy into a highly inclusive and sustainable system of opportunities to create vast wealth.
We are well underway in delivering the most ambitious package of strategic interventions and aimed at transforming Kenya's economy into a highly productive, highly inclusive, dynamic, and sustainable system of opportunities in order to feed the nation.
In embracing the Innovation Week, the president reiterated that innovation is a crucial component of Kenya's national economic development blueprint as an element in economic transformation and realization of the Vision 2030, adding that innovation radically enhances the capacity to solve problems and achieve goals aligned to the country's vision and transform the country into a knowledge-based economy driven by technology.
Innovation has been identified in our national economic development blueprint as a cross-cutting element of our economic transformation.
The president also revealed the government's plan to implement the bottom-up economic transformation agenda in a way that incorporates innovation into every program. Pertaining to that, he said that the government plans to change the law to allow the Constituency Development Fund to provide resources for setting up innovation and ICT hubs in all wards countrywide.
We are determined to implement the bottom-up economic transformation agenda in a manner consistent with its ambition by integrating innovation into every dimension of policy, program, and project.
The Innovation Week, which will end on 1st December, will give innovators and entrepreneurs an opportunity to share the expertise and access networking opportunities. Sylvester Ogembo, KUTV.
Now, the Malawi government has partnered with the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, and a mobile service provider to help students in rural Malawi learn how to use the latest digital technology. However, there's still a shortage of some gadgets. Lamek Masina reports from Dedza district in Malawi.
Learners at Lintipe Secondary School in central Malawi are among thousands in 9 schools across the country, selected as the first beneficiaries of a 5-year project to help students learn the latest digital technology. Here, the children feel transformed just 3 months into the project.
At first, I didn't know how to use a gadget, but now I am now able to use the gadget. Even our teacher can teach us how to make things. We cannot agree that it is true because we don't know how to make it. But when we see it using the gadgets, we are able and truly understand the meaning of making things.
Government statistics show that 4% of 15 to 24-year-olds in Malawi have skills in information and communication technologies. This is largely because of the high cost of buying internet data and lack of access to resources for digital education. So partners in the Connect a School project, the Malawi government, UNICEF, and the mobile phone network provider, Airtel Malawi, are trying to address that gap by equipping each school with a smart TV, tablets, and free internet connectivity. Nora Chavula Chirwa with Airtel Malawi says the company is providing schools with a free internet access and that the new apps are helping to make up for a lack of resources at some schools.
I mean, where there's a hindrance or an obstacle of not having a physical lab, now the students are able to actually run experiments, run physics experiments using the MyLab app that the Ministry of Education has facilitated that these tablets should have.
MyLab is a visual science lab application developed by students at Nzuzu University in northern Malawi. Some school officials say more tablets are needed for the project.
The total enrollment of the school is 350, around 350 students. But the gadgets, the tablets are only 20, which means one is for the teacher and the 19 are for the students. And now, how effective can we use these gadgets with the students?
Malawi government authorities say they are trying to get more tablets.
Right now, as I'm speaking, there's a procurement process taking place to buy devices to run MyLab in selected schools, and this will be growing.
In the meantime, Mikeka says the government has signed a letter of intent with the International Telecommunications Union, UNICEF, and the GIGA initiative to provide digital resources to over 80,000 public schools in Malawi by 2030. Lamek Masina for VOA News. Dedza district, Malawi.
All right, now in sports, European League action across different stadiums served some entertaining clashes for football fans, including a 3-0 victory of the great Manchester United against Everton in the English Premier League, while Juventus and Inter Milan shared the spoils in the Italian Serie A top of the table clash.
Nacho and strikes from Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial. Aston Villa are in fourth with 28. The English Premier League matchday 13 action saw Manchester United move back to 6th on the log with 24 points after securing a 3-0 victory courtesy of a goal of the season contender from Alejandro Garnacho and strikes from Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial. Aston Villa are in fourth with 28 points after bagging a 2-1 away victory against struggling Tottenham Hotspurs. Rodrigo Goes scored twice and Jude Bellingham added another goal as Real Madrid moved top of the table in the Spanish La Liga with 35 points following an impressive 3-0 victory away at Cadiz. Real Sociedad climbed to 5th on the log after a 2-1 home victory against Sevilla, and Real Betis won by a solitary goal against Las Palmas. Inter Milan remain top in the Italian Serie A with 32 points, while Juventus are 2 points adrift in second place after both teams shared the spoils in the classic Derby d'Italia at the Allianz Stadium. Jose Mourinho's AS Roma moved to 5th on the log with 21 points after a 3-1 home victory against Udinese, while Frosinone climbed to 10th after a 2-1 win against Genoa. And in the French Ligue 1, Nice remained second on the log with 29 points, 1 point behind leaders PSG after a 1-0 victory against Toulouse. Brest moved to 7th with a 3-1 away victory against Montpellier, while Rennes and Lille secured victories against Reims and Olympique Lyon respectively. Njama Gikomo for KUTV Sports.
All right, that brings us to the end of the news updates from KUTV Newsroom and right here at KUTV Rise Today. Please continue following the rest of that broadcasting. KUTV Primetime News, 9 p.m. and then Mizizi ya Habari, the Swahili version, earlier on at 6:30 p.m. live here from KUTV Kenya. I'll be sitting with one of the primetime news anchors here later on a panel discussion. Dennis Omondi will be here to help us take a look at the developing stories from all over the world, especially also in the world of business. Capping it off, just right after that sports update, Kenya World Cup qualifiers for the women national football team. The Kenya women national football team is having a clash tomorrow with Botswana, who've just traveled into the country for that Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualification. So it's not a World Cup qualifier, sorry, it's a Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualifications. It's happening tomorrow at 3 p.m. So be square and be there to support the women's team. After, of course, the World Cup qualifier that we saw Kenya national men's team beat Seychelles 5-0 last week on Monday. We're hoping to continue that with the women's national football team. Please provide your support and create time to show up for this clash that will be happening for this first leg 1 of 2, before Kenya travels to Botswana. It's going to happen at the Nyayo National Stadium at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So that's the information you get there. Let me go for a short break and then I'm coming back later on. However, I will leave you with a feature of Digify-Pro online, which is that bootcamp I told you about earlier on, launched by Digify Africa last week on Friday, and is inviting for registration by anyone who'd like to take up skills that will enable them to thrive in the digital economy. So let's have a look as I take that break. We're here to discuss the future of work and digital skills. So Digify Africa is on a mission to reduce youth unemployment, and they're doing this by equipping young people with skills which are necessary for them to get a sustainable livelihood out of a digital economy. So we're speaking about web marketing, we're speaking social media advertising, data analytics, and all the important skills that are relevant for the young people to position themselves for an income on a global scale. Digify Africa is doing this in partnership with a couple of key clients, from the Rockefeller Foundation to the British High Commission and Meta as well. So if learners want to get themselves these skills, there's a discussion happening here with a panel of experts, and eventually, of course, you can check out the website online to see if you are eligible to enroll in this 10-week intense program of digital skills. So welcome to Biashara Tuesday. Let's have a look at what the experts have to say.
This conversation around digital skills and the future of work. And as we get started, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce what you do. I only mentioned your names, introduce what you do, and let us know your first or introductory remarks around the future of work.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Juliet Gateri, founder of Alternate Doors Consulting. We are a HR and recruitment firm. We've been now in the industry 11 years. We just passed by like that, 11 years. In terms of the future of work, I'm here to learn from the experts, but I'll also share my experience in the kind of skills that employers are looking for, both locally and internationally, and where the gaps are and what we can do to make sure that those gaps are filled. So I'm excited to be on this panel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beatrice Nderane. I'm the regional manager at OKENYE East Africa. OKENYE is a programmatic ad tech. Now, when I say ad tech, you obviously think digital space, digital marketing, anything digital, I'm sure, even if you don't understand the term. So generally what we do is digital advertising, serving ads online on websites and apps, and many innovative things. So when I think about the future of digital and workspace, I obviously think digital first. I want to believe in each and every organization there's an opportunity for digital to grow. And maybe without even knowing it, we are already doing it indirectly. Whether you're a HR practitioner, whether you're a banker, whether you are an accountant, you're already doing digital marketing, quote unquote, or digital work indirectly without knowing it. So I hope we'll be able to shed more light on this as we go along. My name is Sandra Boyole. I'm the regional PR manager at Bolt. I know you all know Bolt, or at one point have used it. So I lead the PR and public relations for Bolt, and not just Bolt, but Bolt Foods and Bolt Business, which is not only in Kenya, by the way. We cut across Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Tunisia, and we are expanding across other markets. Big business, I must say, very competitive, as you may know, and has its challenges, but I guess that's the exciting bit about ride-hailing. When I think of the future of work, I'm thinking technology, definitely. The future of work will be technology-led. It will be very dynamic, and by dynamism, I mean not only technical skills as we used to know it, but definitely soft skills are some of the skills that people are looking for right now, leveraging technology as opposed to what it was before. So I'm thinking of future of work being very dynamic, very technology driven, but also soft skills are now one of those hot cake kind of aspects that people are looking for. I'm hoping to delve more into this as we continue to say.
Good evening, guys. I'm grateful to be here, so happy to be here. My name is Eric Wilson Ofula. I'm the head of marketing for Brighter Monday East Africa. And as I listen to my fellow panelists, I couldn't help but get excited because whatever they're describing and whatever they do serves as a testament of tech and how it impacts our lives. Because trust me, each of these panelists has impacted my life directly in one way or another. Juliet, you actually interviewed me sometime, but I'm very, very excited to be with you in this panel. Very, very grateful. Of course, I've used OKENYE before as a digital marketer, and it has saved my neck from the boss's noose several times, and I came here using Bolt. All right, so that's the future of work. You can see how tech has made the world very, very compact, and how each of these three individuals has actually impacted my life very, very positively until now I'm seated here. Thank you.
KCPE and KCSE. The KCPE results have just been released yesterday, and KCPE students or high school students have just finished their KCSE. If you were to advise them, now they're thinking about their career and the future, which do you think, or which skills would you advise them to pursue as they start their journey into their career? What do you think are the most important skills? Juliet?
At the moment, I would look, so if somebody has finished their KC, the last one is KCSE, yeah. So if somebody has finished their KCSE, I would really encourage them to get a technical based skill. Because right now, you're not looking at only working in Kenya, you're looking at global. And the easiest way you can get somebody globally to give somebody in Kenya a role is a technical skill. And these skills, you really don't have to go to university for 4 years. You can now start growing your skill slowly. Actually, that is the first skill I would advise anyone who's finished the KCSE to take up.
Thank you, Bishop.
So for me as a CBC parent, I'm actually blown by the opportunities we have in terms of technology. I was just telling my friend and my new friend how my child is already using Minecraft, and literally she knows how to navigate everything, move, build, and it's mind-blowing. So I want to imagine for these people who just finished, we are in 2023, she's only 6 years old. They need to be upbeat in terms of their future, in terms of technology, in terms of digital, in terms of transformation, in terms of product innovation, in terms of, software engineering and all things technology. Why? Because where the world is going today, I want to believe, in school we were taught that media is convergent. I didn't understand that then. But now it makes sense how everything on traditional media has come to digital and has gone beyond what we imagined now to AI and so on. So they need to be futuristic. They need to think beyond technology today to what the future holds and blow us out of our minds, literally, because that's where the future is going.
Thank you. Sandra.
Oh, I have a lot to say about this, but I think for me, when I think of KCP, KCSE, and anyone even before that, the number one skill I would think of that you could use to leverage the current technology world that we are in would be problem solving. I think any person who has been in tech or not will attest the fact that even when you go to interviews, I think the first question you ask, what problem are you coming to solve? What gap are you coming to fill? So I think the capability to solve a problem within the space you're in, whether in tech or not, is a great skill, and it starts at a very young age, right? Just that how, what you're talking about Minecraft, it's a problem-solving skill because you're developing the child's brain into being able to solve a problem. If you're in high school, if you're in college, or even if you've finished, anytime, I think even at work myself, anytime I think of my challenges, I think, what problem am I solving? I think I would also want to add, and it's not young for the young people to really start thinking critically. I think critical thinking is also very important right now. Over and beyond what we know work used to be when some of us started interviewing, and now I think the skills, especially someone who has been in tech like myself, having been at Bolt, Sandy, and all other tech companies, I would think problem solving, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and lastly, I would say right now, I don't know if all of you know what the new gold is right now in the technology world. No, data. Data is the new gold, and if data is the new gold, then data analytics is important. So case in point, if you're in high school or just finished KCPE, data is still important because you're trying to derive things out of information. How do you get all this information and turn it into data or information that somebody can use to solve a problem? So I would marry data and problem solving into one, and I think it's one of those critical things that if you want to survive in tech or you really are passionate about getting into the tech world, I think those are the things we should be encouraging our young ones to start thinking about. Critical thinking, how do you utilize data and how do you solve a problem in wherever space you're in.
That's technical skills. Yes, Eric.
Martin, I'll tell you what I wanted to say. I think, especially for the younger generation, we should encourage them to, at least put their phones down, right? It's becoming a concern, and when you talk to tutors and also employers and recruiters, right? And I'd like to echo what Sandra has said. There are some critical skills which are missing, and that's definitely creativity, right? And problem solving. You know, as we grew up and we were making our own toys. I mean, Martin, if you remember, Ile Gariawaya, you know, that's creativity. Like where did these guys in America, these guys who let's say invented vehicles, the Fords and all that start from, right? It's something that is nurtured from actually a very, very young age. Instead of guys just being hooked up on their phone, especially this younger generation, you know, try and create your own fun without necessarily being in front of a phone or a computer. So problem solving, creativity, be analytical. I think it's very, very crucial. Someone had said something about emotional intelligence, right? You know, from a very young age, we'll know our place in the society and how to interact with others and how to get our way, right? So we won't be stuck somewhere playing video games, right? True? These things are not there, okay? So it's something that there's actually a gap when you look at guys joining employment right now, right? And the issues around Generation Z, right? But definitely it's a gap that can be closed. It's a gap that they can exploit. And those things are very, very crucial, not just in the world of tech, but in any world, because I say that, you know, sometimes initially I'll call myself a digital marketer, but I'm not a digital marketer in reality. I'm a marketer in a digital world. So the world is becoming digital. So how do you live with technology without losing your humanity?
The gaps would be what you said, emotional intelligence, open communication, and even with us millennials and we have the baby boomers, how do you have open feedback, open communications with the current Gen Z who have been born, you know, with digital? How do we have that upward, downward feedback? How do you even manage downward? How do you manage up? Actually, what I see with the current generation is how the skills of how do you manage up, social skills, emotional intelligence, because yes, you may come with all the knowledge, but when you think of the workplace, especially a very fast-paced technology company, we are not just looking at, you being a data analyst or you being a computer scientist. When you come in, how are you helping us with that? How are you communicating with different people internally? Because I'm a PR person, I'm not a data analyst, right? How do you help me, use that data? How do you communicate that? Emotional intelligence, social intelligence, managing upwards. How do you manage your bosses? How do you manage, these people, patience, open feedback, immediate feedback, and Martin, that is just not only for, them, even for us. It now also changes the dynamic and it changes the game for someone like me. If I'm getting a Gen Z on board, then how do I manage downward? How do I, meet them halfway? Because most of people are into flexi working, remote working. They want to feedback you immediately as a leader, and we need to be very open to that. Open communication, quick feedback, immediate feedback, and just leveraging how tech savvy they are to help us solve our problems.
Wow, managing your bosses, managing upward. Beatrice, Julius talked about technical skill, and you're in the marketing and advertisement space. What are the opportunities for digital marketers, and especially with the digital skills, especially the young people that have just gone through training and they're looking for opportunities? What are the opportunities that you're seeing coming up, and what are the gaps?
Awesome question, Martin. I know when we started, most of us here have more than 12 years of experience in digital, and literally there was nothing like digital marketer, digital specialist. They're like, who is that? Those are just terms that came to be, I think, recently in the last 4 or 5 years. So there are many opportunities. For example, we have social media marketers, people who come up with content creators. Recently, we have bloggers, we have influencers, micro and mini influencers. These guys, I remember when I was back at the agency a few years ago, getting an influencer was a very weird thing. I imagine telling Sandra that I'm proposing influencers on my campaign plan, and she'd be looking at me like, Betty, are you serious? And this is a real job today, and there are people being paid a lot of money to content create, to be influencers, to be bloggers, to be vloggers, and so on. And there's an opportunity, and there is no one who actually taught them to be influencers. They just taught themselves. Literally, we didn't have to go to school to be digital marketers. I believe, for me, the only course I did was Digital for Africa. I know you know them. Many years ago, that's the only course I did. But now we have more opportunity, we have mentorship as well. So if you're stepping out of college and you're wondering what next, you can also create your own opportunity in terms of, I like what she said again, what solution are you coming to offer? And I believe for us to be where we are is because we offered a solution. I saw a gap. When I joined agency back then, I was a project manager. Yeah, there was no account management in agency at that specific time. So I saw a gap. And then you go on Google and you're like, agencies in the world. And then they give you a list of opportunities of what you can do. So then account managers were born. Then there was, okay, so you've done account management for 4 years. Now you can graduate to the next thing. Then you become an account director. Then you move on to being a GM of an agency, something that wasn't there before. So those are some of the opportunities you have. So look boldly, look around your organization as a person and see where are the gaps. For instance, if it's HR, if you feel like there's a delay in getting out stuff, can you be a product innovator of, HR things, right? So it's just looking at opportunities within organizations, not just to say these jobs that have already been put there, like digital marketers, bloggers, and so on, is the only thing. There's an opportunity to also create space for yourself, and even a title. I believe we did that, and so far, now people are hiring digital managers and specialists across the board.
Content creators. The other day at State House, the president said that some of the content creators earn more than the president. And Eric, I know you deal with some of these on-demand skills, and some of them are getting employed. How are the opportunities like? Are they employed or paid like any other employee? Are they getting remunerated like any other employee? How do you manage the different, especially the bloggers, the content creators, the community managers? And what are the things that you look for?
Of course, something that really gets me excited is something called reverse mentorship. And sometimes it actually happens at work, right? Where these guys come in and let's say you're an old school marketer and they change the game by what they do, right? So they're a little bit bold and they say, look, let me create for you guys a social media platform. And you start seeing inquiries coming through that platform and you're like, hey, this thing is making a lot of sense, right? So it all boils down to what do you want to achieve, right? So there's something that Coca-Cola does. They usually put 70% of their marketing budget on what works, 20% on what works for others, but they don't do it, and then 10% on what no one has ever done before. All right? So it's quite holistic, if I may say, and quite experimental. So a lot of companies need to adopt that. They need to embrace change, right? And of course, look at the trends, right? And that follows that when you adopt strategy that is outside what you usually do, right? Of course, you have to look for skills. I think my fellow recruiter is here. And when you're making plans and budgets, most people don't plan for skills. But skills is very, very important. People who's going to execute your plan, right? So you need to build a pipeline for the right skills, and also you need to equip your team with the right people, right? And if this means that it's the content creators, because those are the guys who are making change, right? Then you have to bring them on board, and then absorb them into your work policy, right? So that means that you have to treat them like any other person, very, very fairly. Initially, like Sandra said, like this thing, it wasn't taken very, very seriously. But given the impact that it's creating, we're seeing now, like you said, influencers are being paid quite a bit, and brands are starting to take them very, very seriously. Because again, they are showing that traditional media is not working. It's not as productive as it used to be, right? I mean, most employers will have no choice but to adapt this new age of doing things, and of course it goes with all the HR policies and remunerations that come with it.
Thank you. Juliet, you talked about technical skills, and Beatrice has talked about the technical skills within marketing. But I know there are more skills, technical skills that come to digital. What are the skills that are on demand, especially in the market, and what are employers looking for?
Okay, I'll look at it in Kenya. I believe in Kenya, when you look at the sub-Saharan region, we're a bit more advanced. So even other countries are looking up to us in terms of the skills that we have. So if I look at currently the on-demand skills that are currently there in terms of digital, I think Betty has already mentioned a couple of them. I'll mention the pain points that we have as recruiters, and we can't find that skill. And we even have to go out of our way to, sweet talk somebody. So one of them is media buying. That's a really critical skill that there are not too many people in the market who have that. The other skill I won't touch on, on the digital side, I've struggled a lot on media buying. On the technical side, in Kenya we have very good developers, but in the market people mostly, they're generalized. So somebody's a full stack developer. There was a company in the US and in Germany, they wanted to recruit Kenyans to work for them. But there are some niche skills that we were lacking. So we are very good at being generalists, but there are some skills globally that we are missing out on. I liked what Betty said as well, like she went and Googled globally. So I would also urge people, Google global skills, so that you can be on top of, you can be on top of the market, like you're number one. So for example, if I'm a graphic designer, there's another role we were recruiting for as a graphic designer, but it was a US-based company, and they wanted global people. So it was a graphic design, it was 3D, so they needed some niche skills, which, to be honest with you, the whole of Africa, nobody had that skill. So if I'm a graphic designer, I would go to those global companies, see what they're recruiting and those skills, and now start training myself. So I would reverse engineer and look at global skills, and then now come back and ensure that I tap into that market, so that I'm not just a Kenyan resource, but I'm a global resource. Yeah.
Thank you. You're seated here and you're listening to this conversation. You're an expert. Anybody who can access the internet, we learn every day. And I want to urge you, if you have any questions, start writing them down. We'll be coming down to you so that we can have a great conversation. Make a contribution to this conversation. Now, Eric, I know there are so many people that you've been employed, you've worked for 10 years, and everyone is talking about digital skills. what can these people do? How can you advise such a person who is already employed? They pursued a certain course, and now everyone is talking about the digital skills.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I didn't see that question coming, despite me sitting right next to you. I was trying to squint my eyes and try to figure out what you're going to ask me. But look, I mean, people always switch in careers, right? Especially, and this is in the Kenyan context, especially people in their mid-30s. Why? You're more stable, right? You want to experiment, you want to find out new things. Now you want to really follow your passion, right? And most people actually land the first job that they get. And then after 10 years, you have learned the landscape, you have navigated, you are seeing opportunities. Perhaps whatever you have is not paying very, very well. You need to adapt, so that you can get a bigger bump in your raise. So it's not unusual, and it's very, very normal. But something about tech skills is that it's one of the easiest skills actually to learn, right? So there are lots of career switches. I was talking to some guys at Moringa School, and you find that a lot of people who are doing their courses are actually guys who don't have a tech background, right? And they give it a term as career switches. And some of those courses are really, really short. But the thing is that they can actually enable you to fit in that whole matrix of a future fit employee, especially in any organization. Because most organizations these days are adapting technology. Hey, you don't want to be left out, right? So it's something which is again really, really possible. There's a term I've mentioned here, reverse mentorship. So if you are on the other side of 35, like me, right, you can look for someone who's younger and go to them like, hey, how do you do this? I do that all the time, even with those guys who are serving under me, because they have that propensity, and they tend to absorb things much faster. So as much as I'm working with them, I'm also learning from them. So open the communication channels, be curious. There's a lot of material, definitely online. Learn to know where to get these resources. And that will depend, of course, with your style of learning. If you're an in-class person, sign up to some of these schools. We've got Moringa, short courses, etc. If you're someone who's more into mentorship, well and good. If you're someone who does on-the-job training, talk to your boss, right? And tell them, look, I want to find out, I want to job shadow someone for quite some time so that I can be able to adapt that skill. So don't be afraid, go for it.
Well, I think I would, having worked at tech companies, and I'll be very biased towards what I'm about to say. And if there's anything else you will leave out this room with, as someone who perhaps wants to work for a global tech company, I would say, Martin, would be honestly data. Like when I think of what everyone here has said, I'm thinking that data is still king. So when it comes to digital, I would say any career you want to take from a digital perspective, whether it's product, if you want to be a product developer, if you want to be a data analyst, if you want to be a digital marketer, because even digital marketing, it's grand, like you said, but within digital marketing, we have performance marketing, right? For you to be a performance marketer, you're basically working with data. For me to be a PR person now, I'm not just PRing, I have to really work with data to inform my PR decisions as well. For me to be a marketer in general, it's not just me coming up with billboards and whatever. At the end of the day, people want to see ROI, return on investment. For you to be able to do that, at the end of the day, it's all about data. How are you able to actually analyze data? And I would say whatever you do and whatever space you want to get into, whether it's product, whether it's marketing, whether it's digital, whether it's development, whatever the case might be, whether it's media even, whether it's politics. I think it all narrows down to data, in my opinion, and I've looked at all these tech companies, and I know at the end of the day, the one question they want to find out, even as they talk to you, is, yes, you are a very good, stack developer, like you said, or you're a very good media buyer, or you're very good at doing digital ads and performance marketing, but are you able to use that data to make informed decisions that will at the end of the day give me return on investment as a company? Because me as a company, I'm coming in, yes, I'm ride-hailing and whatever, but at the end of the day, it all narrows down to bottom line, right? How are you able to use that data to coerce your leaders or to coerce the decision makers up there that, look, I'm a data analyst, based on the data I have seen, I think we can solve this particular problem. So if nothing else, I think in the digital skill set that anyone needs, I think, whether you are into digital or not, I think data is king, and whether you are doing social sciences or you're doing mathematics, we all need to really get with the program when it comes to data analytics, in my opinion.
It's about data, analytics, and after you've done your analytics, generate insights, and then make informed decisions. That's what data is about. Now, there is something very interesting that I've seen in different communities, different WhatsApp groups, and people like Eric here who are 35 and the other side are struggling with the Gen Z at the workplace. Juliet, how do we deal with that? How do we manage Gen Z?
I don't know. I feel we are making it a very, big issue. But these are people who are entering into the job market. So the things that even us, I'm a millennial. Yes, I'm a millennial. So, so the things, because there's a time people used to complain about millennials, but it's because they're just entering into the job market, and it's the way we were raised. So we were raised differently. So I forgot to mention, I'm also a clinical psychologist, and the Gen Z people I manage, like you can see, it's something that their parents, instilled in them. So they're always winners, there's no number last. So and so when they come to the workplace, they come with the same mentality. So then they're here to stay with us. So it's for you as an employer or work colleagues or supervisors or managers to just understand them and then take them as they are. I don't think they're a problem, you just have to understand. Some of us are their parents, and you are the ones who instilled some of the things we are seeing. So I think for me what I've seen is, I'll mention a couple of things that I find quite strange. We sign a contract, but after a month or 2 weeks, they want things to be changed. Like, I don't know where that is coming from. So now we agreed, you're coming to the office, it's an 8 to 5 job, but now all of a sudden they want to work remotely. So that's one of the strangest things that I've seen. And then there's a lot of need for therapy. So they will want a mental health day. Like for us, we will not understand, like you deal with your problems the way you deal with them, but currently now there's need for that. I think that's the second one. The third one is they'll challenge you. For us, when authority tells you to do something, you keep quiet, you do you weigh things, like you see, okay, this is not my time to speak. But for them, they'll challenge you. They'll ask you why. They'll have answers. Like it's a strange thing, but they're here with us. So, and for me, I like the challenge. If you ask me a question, then I'm even like, you're putting some thought into it. You're not a yes person. So, but they are just entering into the workplace. We should have some grace with them and just maybe guide them and mentor them and provide therapy services.
I can see Sandra is burning. You want to contribute. Let's hear what Beatrice has to say about Gen Z.
Wow, so in my workplace, I'm literally the oldest person. So you can imagine all my team members are like below 28. So That obviously tells you a lot, right? So now, I like what you have said about embracing them. My only challenge is I struggle with people who are not disciplined and consistent. And I have learned to unlearn what I knew when I joined, OKENYE or my previous workplace. Because for me it has been, things have to be done in a certain way, at a certain time, in a certain manner. And then you find this young man who is super talented. He's like graphic designer, engineer, 150% genius. Comes to work at 12, highly drunk, and then leaves at 3, and he'll not pick up your calls. And at that point, Safaricom, who is your biggest client, is on your neck. And you're like, excuse me, what do you mean? You went to what? So what I have learned in such circumstances and situations is to put them in a place where they are more productive. Be open-minded. Create hackathons, for instance. Create an open environment where they are free to share, free to give their output and live at their own leisure, because honestly they are going to live anyways. Whether you say, it's 8 to 5, they are going to live anyways. So create an environment that fosters, work output to be done, regardless of whatever time they live. Encourage them to also, talk to the older generation so that you don't feel left out. As well as don't focus too much on the time and the day-to-day in terms of, rules, but on the output. And I think COVID actually taught us that when we had to work from home with our laptops and so on and Zoom calls. And we actually realized we don't need to be working 8 to 5. We only need maybe 5 hours of productive work, and the rest of the time you can do your side gig. Please, my boss, don't listen. But yeah, literally you can do your side job and you're productive. I became more productive during COVID than previously, because I felt like you had to sit at your desk 8 to 5, literally just refreshing your email. Has the feedback come? But you're not doing anything. Whereas if you are just, purpose to do what you meant to do for that day and moved on to do other maybe we might even have more productive and innovative Kenyans if we, focus on output than the day-to-day.
Focus on the output and be productive. Sandra.
I have a lot to say about this conversation. First of all, I'm a millennial, but a Gen Z at heart. And I'm working for a very fast-paced tech company that's a global company, right? That has, I think, I would say 50% of the employees I work with, or I work closely with, are Gen Zs. And I have a very contrary opinion. I think as opposed to us thinking, looking at Gen Zs as a problem, I think it's important for us millennials and boomers and X generation to leverage the Gen Zs, because I think they have changed the ballgame and we want to maintain the status quo. Yet, Martin, I think the future of work is actually what Gen Zs are doing. They have taught us flexible working. They come to work and they challenge me. They challenge my leadership style. Then it stops becoming I am a leader and you are supposed to report to me. Then it becomes very balanced. What is your challenge? How can I help you? Which I think is what leadership should be. It should not be, I'm telling you to come at 8. It should be, tell me what time to work with you, when are you best productive? Because productivity is very relative. There are people who are morning people, there are people who are evening people. And I think we need to really relook, work by, I think, number one, what you said, flexi working. How do we leverage their skills? Because already these people are very tech savvy. They are very bold. They would challenge you, they would challenge everything, which I think is an amazing thing, because then it changes the dynamic of the workplace. When I think Tesla, when I think Google, when I think OpenAI, who have been the front runners of all this? Honestly, it's the Gen Zs. And it's the Gen Zs who are actually creating conversations around this. Who are the people who actually asked for the OpenAI CEO to come back? Or they will actually just start a coup, quote unquote. It's the Gen Zs, right? And he didn't eventually go to Microsoft. So I personally think that the Gen Zs are a force to reckon with. they could teach us more than what we could teach them. They have been the ones who have been the front runners of flexi working, and right now, most tech companies that I know, including mine, we embrace flexible working. We embrace you telling me that, Sandra, I'm a morning person. Is it okay for me to work between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. and I will give you all the deliverables, and then can you cut me some slack after that? I'm cool with it, because if that's the only way you will be productive, then I'm down. And I think employers and companies just need to embrace that, because that's the future. Also, I think when it comes to leadership, personally, I think as somebody who's leading the Gen Z, one thing I've learned is that I now don't just feedback. I first listen to feedback, and I want to listen to them feedbacking me. It has, I think, made me a better leader. So I think we should look at Gen Zs as people we can leverage to learn a lot and to change our working environment for the betterment of the organization, as opposed to people who are a pain in you know what. But one thing I think I want to say that perhaps I would encourage the Gen Zs who are here that I have noticed myself, and I wouldn't even call it a problem, I would just call it an area of improvement, I would say, is instant gratification. I think I've seen most Gen Z who have come and they're like, oh my God, Sandra, I want everything that you have, or I want everything, but I keep telling them, you realize that I started this 11 or 12 years ago, right? So you can't be able to maybe drive a Benz tomorrow, and I know you're really, you are very eager, which is good. It's such a good trait, but the eagerness can also be, very detrimental, especially if you want it very instantly, right? So I think that's an area of improvement. I would tell any Gen Z that you may be a very good product manager today, but remember, even Elon Musk took 20 years to be where he is. And it is a journey. It's a journey. You can't get it tomorrow. I know you want it tomorrow, but it can't happen tomorrow. It's baby steps and it takes time. I think the instant gratification element is the only thing I would ask them to do, but don't change.
Sandra is an honest person. She said she has a lot to say about Gen Z. Now, Eric, Sandra talked about the future, and the future is artificial intelligence. And people are talking about generative AI and the impact that it will have on the digital skills. That we talked about content creators, but we're seeing some of the dynamics that generative AI is bringing into the workplace. What's your take on the future of digital skills? And we are privileged in our presence to have Ronald Okumu. Ronald is my friend, and he is an AI expert. So Ronald, as we get to the Q&A, we'll give you an opportunity to make your contribution on AI. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So it's an opportunity. I don't think AI is an enemy as such. Well, actually, you can collaborate with AI, right? And you can also use it for learning, right? So apart from collaboration, it makes work easier, right? You can use it for learning. And also you can use it basically to do away with repetitive tasks, right? It's so easy when things are automated. You don't have to take so much time to do something that a machine or an algorithm can do for you in a matter of seconds, right? Another thing is that AI can actually create jobs. The only people who are going to lose their jobs, let me tell you, the only people who are going to lose their jobs because of technology are people who don't use technology. It's sad, but it's true. So embrace it, right? Even companies that don't. Itoaramba, right? Right. So I'll give you an example. Kodak was one of the companies that actually it was among the first that came up with this. It's called digital photography or something of that sort, right? But they didn't adopt it. What happened? They still continued using those old films. What happened? Right? They died, right? Nokia, they're using, I think, Finger. They didn't adopt to Android, right? So they missed all those opportunities just because they didn't see an opportunity to collaborate, to learn, to utilize for repetitive tasks, right? And that's what I will conclude by saying, like, AI is basically a friend. It's here to stay. It's like books, right? You know, people used to fear books, especially in the Middle Ages. Like it wasn't open to everyone. But guys realized, okay, it's an important thing, right? So these things are here to stay. I think we can moderate it, and we can use it to our advantage.
Do you have, what's your take on AI and the future of
All right, it was quite an insightful session. That is last week on Friday at the Nairobi Safari Club. We got to attend that launch. As you've seen there, there's more conversation. We just cut it short, but you can get TV Kenya. More questions were actually answered there, apart from digital skills and technical skills that you need. There are also more conversations around addiction and what you need to do, especially if you are in a PR disaster. If you are getting into a digital world, of course, you're expecting a lot of online interactions, which sometimes could be negative. So how do you navigate that if you're going to be pursuing a career in public relations or any of those that are concerning digital entrepreneurship? So get the rest of that interview on our YouTube at KUTV Kenya. Right about now, though, it is 8:51 in the morning, and I just want to welcome two gentlemen in a short while here on the newspaper review section. We are delving deep into the matters that are affecting the citizens, and of course from the international front, but mostly here within our borders. What is the business of the Republic and how does it affect us? Don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Shuhuda zako hazielezeki. Oh, umefanya hili, umefanya lile, umenipa jina Baba, nina kushukuru. What is this? A stick, right? And what has happened to the stick? Imevunjika, right? Follow me. They say broken things can't be fixed, right? But that's a lie. Kwani, why did Jesus die on the cross? It is so that those who are broken can be fixed. Now, that is why this program is here. Believe and live. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, anybody who believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Whosoever believes shall live. John 3:16. Catch me right here only on KUTV every single Sunday. Now, good news, there'll also be a subsequent series called Biblical Mathematics, but you'll only catch it right only on my YouTube channel at Believe and Live John 3:16. See you there.
Okay, easy. Turn around. Okay, I've stopped.
Out of my life.
No.
And lose Nambi? How did I get myself into this mess?
What is going to be a problem? Then you will have to pay me every single shilling.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audiovisual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Thank you for your patience. We are back here. Hashtag Biashara Tuesday. I love it that you are still sticking with us. But if you're joining us for the first time, let us know where you're tuning in from. Already have feedback here. Engineer Francis Minor saying Mr. Moneyman tuning into the show and waiting for the nudgets. Some of those nudgets are coming up shortly here on the newspaper review section. I'm going to introduce shortly the gentleman who I have here with me on Twitter, or X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. You can find me at Richard_OKENYE. Jaco Juang, still in the Republic, hajarudi Turkey, but on a watch show. I see Emperor Sheka as well watching us all the way from Kahawa of Sukari. Thank you, Jal Racontua, for checking us out on Twitter. Anauliza, kwani mimi ni mhubiri? I'd love to know what that question is regards to. Papa Peli, watching us all the way from Juja, alongside here Edwin Kibichum, some are traveling to Rift Valley, but lazima nimalize show kwanza. The Grand Duke, Magu Mike, saying, it's a very sensitive remark, so I won't say it, but thank you for watching the show. Michael Magu, that's a former high school mate of mine. Thank you for tuning in to the show. We are now getting into the newspaper review section. Get yourself a copy of the e-paper or the physical copy, which goes for just Kenyan shillings 60. Before the taxes go up, you can get it at that price. The Daily Nation I have here with me. I have the Standard and the Business Daily. So let me quickly go through the headlines and then introduce the gentlemen here, Nick and Dennis, who are joining me in a short while. Let's start with the Daily Nation here. The headline, Court suspends new health plan. Court suspends new health plan. That's the headline there on the Daily Nation. A judge yesterday granted orders which are halting the implementation of the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act, dealing a blow to President William Ruto's push to effect the new health plan that seeks to make it mandatory for every family to contribute a percentage of their income to the fund. Right. The Standard picks it up where there's mass sackings which are looming as NHIF changes begin. This is also still following up on that new Social Health Insurance Fund. The Standard here highlighting the looming changes at the NHIF. Health Cabinet Secretary, that is Susan Nakumisha, has told health fund workers that their jobs are not guaranteed. And the news came as they're moving from NHIF to SHIF. Those are two different bodies, and therefore there's going to be a transfer of functions and also a transfer of workers. Some are likely to lose their jobs. Where do they run to? The Business Daily is also speaking on the business of the Republic. 200 billion Kenyan shillings asset-rich parastatals put on sale. 11 entities have been earmarked by President William Ruto and to be privatized in an IMF-backed plan. Among those is Kenya Pipeline, KICC, among other most lucrative of these government assets. Let's get into the details, but first let me welcome the gentlemen here. Morning, Dennis and Nick. Habari yako yenu. Let's start with Deno. Habari yako? Yeah. Yes. Ko salama?
Na ya Nick.
Salama sana.
Right.
Yes.
Morning, Nick.
Morning.
Unlike last week, it is not raining, so it's a beautiful day outside.
Yes, and you see the people of Roysambu are saying I should say hi this morning.
Right.
And they are glad that the Roysambu representative come 2027 is here.
Yeah.
And they are saying you keep pushing the wagon.
Right.
Yes.
Roysambu representative 2027. If you know, you know, right? So let's get into it, gentlemen. Which headline makes sense the most? We always have to, hit out at the editor. Tuone priority iko wapi leo. So Business Daily has 200 billion assets rich parastatals put on sale. I would say for the Business Daily that's apt because it's business, and the business of the Republic is the biggest business of the day. 200 billion. But if we are comparing the Daily Nation and the Standard there, in beginning with Nick, what do you have to say?
Richard, a few weeks ago we talked about this issue. Now, the main concern is the public faith.
Right.
That if we are putting the parastatals to the market, what is the process? How is the public involved in that process? Who are the buyers? We need to know, because these are government owned properties, right? Are they auctioned to private individuals who still run the government?
Okay.
So those are the running questions that are going into the public, and the people need to have faith into this process.
Okay. Deno?
So I think on the same one, the last time we had this panel constituted the way it is today, we talked about privatization. The only difference is that at that time, the law had not been assented to. But today, as we speak, the law has been assented to, and now the president can privatize them legally, having that full legal backing.
Okay.
And so looking into that, you see the first installment of parastatals that have been put up for sale are 11. And when we look at what is coming out of the government, the information or communication from the government indicates that this is going to go up to about 35 parastatals by the time we get to next year. So I think for the first time, it is now going to happen. According to the reports in the papers today, this is something that has been tried for almost 10 years.
Okay.
But it has not been successful. It looks like President Ruto will finally have his way.
All right, 200 billion for 11 parastatals. So if we're going for 35, I'm guessing this figure will hit the trillions if it comes to that next year. That's a comment on the Business Daily's headline. But you gentlemen haven't told me what you think of the two headlines, the Daily Nation and the Standard.
Okay, should I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Let me look at the Daily Nation. You know, in the newsroom, we normally say when you want to look at prominence, I can see the editors at Nation were having a lot of difficult time which story to give prominence, because clearly you see the one in the biggest fonts is the one where court suspends new health plan.
Right.
But then they decided to put a picture of KCPE, meaning they also want that to come
Which
out.
also be
to also come out clearly. And then the top story on the Business Daily. But I think all editors in both media houses agree that the issue to do with the NHIF and health matters is the most important this morning.
Okay, and that's what we have here. So let's get to the Daily Nation, which is what you have there.
Yes.
I didn't hear from Nick. What do you have to say of the two headlines?
The Standard talks about, again, mass sacking. They have put a huge priority on the issue about jobs, which we'll talk about, and also about the Ruto-Raila proposal into law.
Okay.
The NADCO committee of dialogue.
Yes.
So those are the main issues that Standard really wanted us to talk about today.
But I think I'll personally vote on the Standard there, especially coming from what Nick said, which is if you're talking about parastatals here, there are questions which we need to ask. Who's buying, who's selling to who? And I think the Standard answers these questions, or at least puts us into a moment of questioning. Mass sackings, which is job losses for these workers. It is a good story that we have to talk about NHIF and what the court has decided, but this job loss is a very important story, especially at this time. And then also, of course, the proposals and what this law means to hustlers. I think jobs and the situation of the country in terms of the economic environment is well represented here, even still taking prominence of what Deno said the most important story of the day, which is health. So let's begin with the Daily Nation. The court has suspended this new health plan, and I was chatting with you gentlemen earlier on. We've seen the court do this a couple of times before. There's a court case which is now a petitioner is arguing that it's illegal to deny Kenyan services for failing to register for this fund. There are several clauses, of course, in between this Social Health Insurance Fund Act, which requires a contribution, as said here on page 4, at a minimum of 2.75%, which will be pegged there, paid monthly, with the unemployed assessed on their means to determine how much they will pay, but not below 300 Kenyan shillings. Do you think that the court will still have a look at the needs of the people? We came from the finance bill. 90% of Kenyans were not happy about it. There was no public participation. We expected the court to have a turnaround, but they only bought a few weeks of hope, and then it was still implemented. We have the Finance Act. Any hope here?
Okay, looking at this one, Richard, my prayer is that Justice Chacha Mwita will still be on the bench of the Milimani High Court in February, so that he doesn't get transferred like the others.
Mugure Thande.
Yeah, because what he did, actually, when you look at the health ministry, I think this is the flagship project for them. Yes. I think when President is talking about his achievements in health sector, I think he wanted this to be the biggest thing. Clearly, this one is a big blow to the president. You mentioned something about 2.7%, the contribution being pegged to 2.75%. I'm even worried that the reporter or writer of this story is saying that this is according to government officials.
Okay.
Not according to any written document or law or something. So it means it could go beyond 2.75% and all that. But when you look at the issues that the petition has raised in this case, I think they are very pertinent issues. Something like, for example, the law stating that it is illegal that a Kenyan who has not registered with SHIF cannot access health services. Right. When you go to the facility nearest to you and the doctor or whoever is offering the service tells you, you know what, you are not registered, so I'm not going to give you the service. And we know our health workers, they will do it. They will stop you from getting that service. It is even bad when they know that they are backed by law, so that if you were to escalate this and decide that you are taking them to court, hata uko uta faulu. You see, that makes it really dangerous for Kenyans. Then the other thing for me is, yes, we are having now the Social Health Insurance Fund, the SHIF. We are disbanding NHIF because of some reasons that we know. It was dysfunctional at some point and all that. What guarantees do we have that this one is going to be very good, perfect, if you like to say so? So I think there are so many gray areas that still need to be looked into. So I think it is good that even the legal things that the petitioner is raising, we would have encountered them even ahead. I mean,
even if it was implemented, we'll still face this kind of challenges.
Yes.
Okay. Nick, when you look at this, one of the other things the petitions are raising is the lack of engaging stakeholders. Makes you wonder what the Ministry of Health, who the Ministry of Health had to consult. So now that KMPDU and other medical bodies are also petitioning against the lack of stakeholder engagement. Who makes these decisions?
Richard, recently our chapter, Laikipia chapter, under our national treasurer and the chapter chairman, President Esther Maina, we did a press conference there in Laikipia, and we were really concerned about the issue of health. And true to it, as we had foreseen, the issue of employment, Richard, because that is where these are the stakeholders. Because if we cannot account to how many jobs are going to get lost, right? Because I see what the CS is saying here. Give me a structure that will help me answer many questions regarding whether jobs are guaranteed or not, right? Yet we are this same government wants to tell us that these are the people who are supposed to be paying taxes. It's really unfair, totally, because you want to implement a new structure, right? You're firing people, right? If the structure of itself of the health insurance is really has a lot of gaps, one wants to tend to ask what will happen to the hospital itself, as Dennis is saying. How many patients are going to die because of lack of a good system?
Right.
I personally, in my view,
so it seems even the confusion that is there in terms of transfer of jobs, who moves from NHIF to SHIF, it's a lack of that kind of engagement and therefore confusion.
Because one will want to ask, this health insurance, who is it for? Is it for the government or is it for the people?
Right.
Right?
Right.
This government are making new system or new changes. Are they consulting the people? Have they done public gatherings to hear what the sentiments of the people, right? I hear the proposal that they want to increase the amount from 500 shillings to 1,000 to 1,500. How many people can afford that amount of money at this economy, right? These are one of the things that are really frustrating and are really making Kenyans really painful and crying day in and day out about health.
Right. However, the government is saying this is going to be universal health coverage. They have 4 different acts, 3 different acts actually. That is the Social Health Insurance Fund Act, the Primary Healthcare Act, and the Digital Healthcare Act, all of which have been suspended. Given that this, as you said, there is some of those things that President William Ruto will be boasting if it's successful at the very end of it, should we be looking for the court to suspend it or wait for the implementation and see the fruits, if indeed it is something they've taken a look at and they're now proposing this, given also there have been 100,000 community health workers who've been dispatched to also help in doing this in the households?
You know what, Richard? One thing that we all agree on, no matter which side you are in, is that universal health coverage is an idea that is long overdue.
Okay.
It is a no-brainer that everybody needs to get access to quality and affordable health care. This is something that right now at the topmost is being pushed even by the United Nations. I think it is one of their SDGs there. And it needs to be achieved by 2030. I feel like it is even a shame that we are still talking about it and we are still in the planning stages. We are still not even anywhere close to the implementation. I think it should be our prayer, all of us, that this works. But then it is also good to look at the process so that we don't get it started and then it hits obstacles many years or a few years to come. Because this is not, President Ruto is not a genius. He's not the first person to introduce this. I think President Kenyatta had something about UHC. We even had piloting in some counties. There was supposed to be rollout. What happened to President Kenyatta's own UHC? Now we are talking about President Ruto's UHC. If we don't take care, again, we are going to lose the plot and we are going to lose this, not with the amount spent already, notwithstanding. So I think that it is something that needs to be looked into very carefully. We have to get it right this time.
It's not about excitement on the universal health coverage. It's about ensuring that some of those predicaments are smoothened out.
And what makes me worried, Richard, because again, nobody's talking about it. How much of the taxpayers' money is being used in this process? Right? Are we going to hear another? This process we have been doing, then 10 billion has been lost. Right? We need accountability also, because this process, again, it's not cheap. Right? Kenyans are going to pay a lot of money for this process. At the same time, I still insist that this government itself, because each and every day, we will see, Richard, a lady will walk to Kenyatta Hospital and probably miss or fail to get better insurance, right? And he will fail to get better quality health coverage because this government cannot stand with its people. Number two, because the government has been known continuously to blame my party leader Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I'm yet to see what the excuse this time, because I know I stand with my party leader. He said that today, if someone's wife fails to deliver, this government will wake up and say Uhuru Kenyatta has failed to do his job.
Okay. In the decision, the High Court blocked the use of the National Integrated Identity Management System, and this is also falling under the registration of persons. SHIF states that any child born after the enactment of the law must be digitally registered. So there's still a predicament on registration, data collection of Kenyans, and as well, the Nubian Rights Forum were also filing a case in the High Court because the registration of persons has not been done yet. So how are we going to register for health services? Which means if you're not still recognized, as the Nubian community has been fighting for registration of persons here as Kenyans, that's also going to be another bottleneck, given that you're a section of Kenyans or a section who identify as Kenyans, but now you can't even register for health services because the state does not recognize you. That's quite a sad situation there.
Yes.
And hopefully then the High Court comes up with a decision that doesn't mirror what happened in the Finance Bill or the Finance Act of 2023.
And we really hope this system also talks about how it will be devolved in counties, because that is also something they need to talk about.
Okay.
Because I've had cases whereby a patient comes from all the way from Kiambu County to if Kenyatta University Referral Hospital is in Kiambu County, right? If this patient is referred to the Kenyatta hospital, some of these patients are failed to be taken care of because they're coming from one county to another, and the NHIF itself or the insurance fund does not clearly stipulate where this person can get better quality services based on where he or she comes from. So I hope this system will really handle such nitty-gritties to make sure our people, me and you, Richard, get good quality medical services.
Right. I think it's that friction between devolution, which is health fully devolved, which parts the national government handle. Is it the SHIF? Should we have SHIF within these counties themselves and devolve it fully? Do you know you had something to say before we move on from that health story?
No, I just wanted to say it is good that we are highlighting the fact that these new acts are kind of meeting at some point and rubbing shoulders not very well with other laws that are already existing. Talk about data protection and all that. I think right now data privacy is a very big topic, and it is good that it is also being highlighted. I'd really love to see how the judge is going to decide on this one. And remember that courts really like going to look into the procedure. Even in the election petitions, they really like looking into how is it done versus how it should be done. And let's see what Judge Chacha Mwita will come up with.
Okay, in the meantime, jobs for NHIF staff are in limbo as new management is supposed to take over. Some of these have been given an ultimatum of 2 months to provide proper structures to spearhead their employment process. CS Nakumicha, they are saying that some of them might not get jobs, might not be guaranteed jobs, and therefore will be allowed early retirement. I wonder how you qualify for early retirement if you're in your 40s then and you have no work on the other side. Also, some of them will be placed in public services in some other institutions within the government so that they can be cushioned against job losses. My opinion is all of this should be absorbed to the new fund.
I will argue this way, Richard. If there are going to be losses of job, right, then both CS Susan Nakumincha and President Ruto should resign as well, because if they are allowing people to lose their jobs, it means also they are failing in their job. We should go back and choose people who are going to protect and create jobs, not losing jobs. This is not a matter of issue that we should be discussing here, Richard, each and every morning. These are very sad stories.
I'm hoping there's going to be a petitioner who will add it into the High Court case that job losses also. Let's take a look at it as we have 3 acts. I mean, how many more jobs can be created, or are they not enough?
Actually, as for me, when it comes to the matter of jobs, they said they are going to do an assessment so that if you are going to be transferred from NHIF to SHIF, they are going to assess
if you're fit.
It is my prayer that in this assessment, they get to know those people who are not efficient. Those people we want to do away with corruption. Just the other day, NHIF had a scandal where hospitals were colluding with NHIF to balloon their bills.
The bills, right.
You walk into a hospital, something that should cost, let's say, 500, NHIF is billed 5,000 and all that. If they can weed out those people in their assessment, it will be good. But if they are just assessing and then nothing big comes out of it, I think, come on, transfer all these guys to SHIF, let's move on.
I have a concern though. If you're given a 2-month ultimatum and we know how corrupt NHIF has been, in those 2 months, pesa itatembea chini ya meza hivi, such that when a list comes up at the end, it's, you know, oh, these are the people we've assessed, but really the assessment was through an M-Pesa transaction.
Because these people have mastered the art of taking an opportunity in a crisis. And they know that within these 2 months, a lot of money, So,
never let a good crisis go to waste.
These people in this government.
Okay, so mass sackings are looming. It's nothing to laugh about, really. But hopefully that boat of corruption is not transferred to the other side of SHIF, but we'll be waiting upon the deliberations, of course, of the High Court, given that now petitioners have filed a case there, including, you know, KMPDU and other medical bodies who are saying that stakeholders are not consulted. Also, other human rights forums which are challenging the registration of persons through this new health insurance fund. Read more about it. Page 6 of the Standard is where job losses are at, and on the Daily Nation, page 4 is that where that court case is at. Let's have a look at the images, and I will begin with the Daily Nation, which has a picture of a candidate in last year's KCPE exam from Kitengela International School, accompanied by other pupils, and I can see there behind him the man who's never missing at some of the most sensitive cases recently, who is city lawyer Danson Omari, who's helping them, of course, file this at the High Court. They're saying irregularities, inconsistencies in the grading systems, and some very serious contentious issues, some given marks for exams they never even sat for. And, you know, now the NEC has failed to deliver the last exam of KCPE. How do you mess up your landing? You know, this is the last thing. It reminded me, earlier on I'd introduced this show with a very comical story from Nigeria, where, you know, there was a plane taking off from Lagos to Abuja, and, you know, passengers knew they were going to Abuja, and then, you know, on landing, the crew announces, you know, we are landing in Abuja. Alafu kiangalia nje ya dirisha, it's like, if you're in a march to Thika, unaangalia nje ya dirisha, unasema, hey, Kitengela tena in Thika. So they were 200 miles off. And it sort of mirrored what I saw here with KCPE. It's like you've been delivering this, you're saying we deliver it well to the last bit, and then on the last day, you mess it up.
Yes, Richard, you see, the sad state about this government is there's a lot of incompetence in all this, most of these ministries. We've seen the NHIF, that's the Ministry of Health. Now we are seeing it in education. When Professor Magoa, the late, was alive, we had public faith on the education system. When Matiang'i was there was a lot of public faith. But right now, Richard, if me and you, if this government is going to be there in the next 10 years, right, and God forbid, I say again, God forbid, if our kids are going to have to be in this education system, that will give me and you a lot of heartaches. Because I read a story today that this kid, one of these people who has never scored below 420, he gets 78 out of 500, Dennis. Right? Wow. Ever in history, there's no, you see, even data does not lie, right? If you get 400, 350, 400, 350, average you land somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
You can't go all the
but
way.
This is a guy, this is a child, right? A teenager, and I understand at that level it's very sensitive because the vision starts at that level, right? The level, and some of these kids, depression hit very hard, right? And having this kid getting 78 out of 500, that is really frustrating. Something must be said. Right. We need answers, Richard. Who's running this ministry? Because as it seems, the person on the seat is not the person running this ministry.
They know. NEC released a statement over the weekend before you respond. They're saying that this is a multi-choice examination. So there's chances that, you know, mimi nimeandika A. So tuko na 73 marks kwa science. The whole class of 200 students, for example, here at Kitengela International School, that, you know, NEC is saying it's just a few issues here and there, but, you know, it's a multi-choice exam. It's possible. What do you have to say there?
A few issues which will take how long to correct. Because when you look at what has happened with this year's KCPE, it has done a lot of damage to the integrity of national exams in this country, and the NEC will have to do a lot of facelifting again so that we get to take them seriously one more time. Because what happened with the results, the KCPE results, I want to believe that this was a human error when it comes to computation of the marks and not the marking itself. Because right now what is happening is that even someone who failed genuinely can come and complain, and we will have to listen.
Yes.
Because if the people who are top performers have somebody like one scoring 420 has scored below that 420, I mean, it is possible for that to happen. Yes, it is possible for that to happen. But now what we are having here is a situation where there is so many cases that are repeating themselves in different parts of the country, and we are having a NEC that is not doing enough to calm the tensions, instead just coming out and telling us that, okay, it was just a small mishap here, we will correct. Brings me to the point about what is so hard in, for instance, saying a mistake happened, let's just recall it. What is so hard in recalling this, and we get it right?
Nick, what do you see happens if we recall the exams? They're seeking, the Kitengela International School, through Dansan Omari, are seeking for the High Court to halt the Form 1 selection process until this is done. What is the best case scenario, worst case scenario from your angle?
Before I answer that, one of my good friends, we know him, he's called Nuru Okanga. He recently got 401 marks. 401?
Yes. Yes.
So he did a press conference and said, this government has failed in its job because allegedly he's supposed to get more than that marks. So even him, he has filed a court case in parliament.
Right.
You know, for Nuru, I'm not even sure if Nuru was serious or Nuru was
just creating content.
Because I remember on that day in our newsroom, we were trying so hard to key in his index number. Look, we could not find it in the system. So
okay. One of the students here pictured, I think it's the young lady right next to Ryan Kibet at the front of the Daily Nation. She said, you know, she was asking the government if they've taxed their marks as well. You know, I was supposed to have 400, I was supposed to have 420, but mukachukua hiyo 20 kama VAT. What will happen, you know, if we recall if the High Court recalls this KCPE exams? Do you think that's the best case scenario?
Of course, that is not desirable at this point, because the ministry, the intentions were good. I think the intentions of releasing the results early are always good, because number one, it helps us reduce the cases of irregularity. You know, exams can be stolen at several points in the classroom when they are sitting for it, before it, early exposure to the papers. And even during the marking, the teachers involved and the officials involved in the process can at times connive to do things that are not really very good to the integrity of the papers. But the ministry explained itself that we wanted to get these results. I remember we also had KEPSEA, but KEPSEA has been kept pending to deal with KCPE first, for the sole reason that this would help us then make parents have enough time to prepare for admissions, which are early next year. But with what has happened, I think the parents might even have to wait longer. But I know in court, maybe this can be classified as urgent. We've seen cases where cases are classified as urgent. This is most likely going to be classified as urgent and then acted on very fast. But again, the best thing that can happen, the ministry cannot award marks that are not there.
Right.
Maybe they will just say, let us go back and look at what we have in our store. Look if maybe the problem was in keying the figures, which again will bring us to recalling the results.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Isn't it hilarious and ironical that you know, normally it's NEC who don't trust us. Even during the exam period, is, you know, don't engage in exam irregularities. They, you know, allegedly Telegram was shut down during this period of national examinations. You know, there's distrust to the general public when it comes to national examinations. However, now it's the other way around. Now we can't trust NEC. You know, I did my exams, now I can't trust you who is supposed to give me the results.
One of the things that this government needs to do, number one, both CS Ezekiel Machogu and President William Ruto should offer a public apology to parents and children. Because these parents, most of these parents pay a lot of money for their children to go to school. Right? It is offensive, it is disgusting, and it is very unfair. Number one. Number two, in mature democracies, Richard, if a CS fails in his job, they call for his resignation. I am calling for his resignation because his level of continuous incompetency is growing by day. And we need to see change in this ministry. Right. Number three, because KCSE has just recently ended, we hope for the best.
Okay.
And that is a very sensitive place to touch on.
KCSE is one big monster.
And then finally, Richard, we are still not talking about the issue about the new university funding model. Right? People are coming to university, right? What are the models that have been set up for this transition period, right? This ministry has a lot of gaps that it needs to correct. That day in, day out, we see frustration, and we are really, really frustrated, Richard. Let me just stop it at there.
Because, you know, he's calling for the resignation of the education CS. Personally, I normally don't like holding CSS. We should hold them accountable. I'm not saying we should not.
But you don't like to do it.
But in my own capacity, I really don't see those people as the accounting officers. Most of them rely on PSS. We know of CSS who are in office, but we really question their qualification to holding those dockets. So I see
then at the very least we get a PS resignation, NEC boss resignation.
In fact, for me, I'd ask questions first to NEC. But then I saw a report over the weekend that we're having CSS who are not in control. CSS who are seeing gazette notices for the first time, like the rest of us Kenyans.
Okay, like Allah, SHIF is out.
The president himself said it. He said it in State House that most of his CSAs don't know what's happening in their ministry. So if he knows that, then he should fire all of them.
So most likely we're having a CS who was told we are releasing exams on this and this date.
You show up.
We have your written speech. You come and read the speech for us, Bwana CS, because it is the tradition, it is how it is done. So if that is the situation we have, the least I expected from him is, as the CS, take the phone, call NEC, what is happening, and then come to us with an explanation. The guy has muted.
The guy is muted. The guy is in mute.
And the government has muted.
Yes. The NEC is giving us the wrong results. Makes you wonder if this is IEBC or, you know.
I see
so
what
we have a national talent center.
We need to bring a choir, right?
Okay, so that's what is happening, and we're hoping to, we'll definitely be following up on this case to see what is happening. But as of the moment, there's a case by the Kitengela International School. It's their second year actually contesting results. They did so last year. They're doing it again. So, you know, they are our official leaders of the education opposition. And
they're trying to pull a Baba,
on
a Baba card.
So hopefully this leads to something, given it's Danstan Omari, who is currently handling it. Let's go to parastatals, guys.
Okay.
While we are still at education, one of those parastatals which are up for sale is KLB, which means education is still right there. And I don't want to say if it's under attack, given, you know, it's being auctioned. If we could put a figure, we would. But I think from the new university funding model, already universities auctioning has happened, you know, in quotes, and now we're having it here. 11 parastatals, as Deno said there, it's just the beginning, and the National Treasury already set motion for this. They're calling out the public to give their views. give their views by 50. I'm laughing because, we've been asked of our views a lot.
For a long time.
A lot of times. I don't think they've been put into consideration. We'll see that in the National Dialogue Committee. But also here now by 15th December, you can say what you have to say. But these are some of them. Let me just mention quickly if there's something you have to say about any specific one. We'll hear it, yeah? So Mwea Rice Mills, Kenya Seed Company Limited, Rivertex East Africa, Kenya Pipeline Company, the National Oil Corporation, Kenya Literature Bureau, and Kenyatta International Convention Center, among others. I had a comment here earlier before you gentlemen can chime in here. It's on the Kenya Seed Company, which is among those which are up for sale there. The Kenya Seed Company, this is Anderson Maina saying it on Twitter. Kenya Seed Company and its subsidiaries will be bought by a subsidiary of Bayer or Syngenta or a holding company of Bill Gates. So if it goes to any of these two, which are the highest bidder at the moment, directly or indirectly, we should be ready for hell as a country on food security matters if this Kenya Seed Company is handed over to either Bill Gates or the other side of Bayer. The same way our data as Kenya is handled by Bill Gates and his companies, we are going to the pits soon on matters of health and food security. That's what he has to say on the Kenya Seed Company being amongst the list.
When we talk about Bill Gates, it was very interesting when Bill Gates came to Kenya immediately after the election of the president. I'm told that guy doesn't travel to African countries that easily, and not just African countries. And him coming here was a big statement. Let's see what comes out of it.
Right. Privatization.
I'm more worried because I had a Kenya pipeline in the list. I'm more worried because will the cost of fuel really come down if we go
the National Oil Corporation is also there?
Yeah, I'm more worried, Richard, because I told you earlier that the public faith has already been lost. We simply don't trust this government because they are doing a lot of, I like to call them gimmicks, to manipulate a lot of things that are frustrating to the public. I want to hear what are the processes that they are using to make sure that there is these parastatals don't go to a single bidder, right? And you talked about the Kenya Literature Bureau, right? Very soon they are going to also to auction the Kenya Library Services because apparently they still believe we Kenyans we don't need to go to school.
They don't read.
Yes, we don't read. And not even just a matter of reading. We don't need to go to school. So that come 2027, that's the best way to manipulate us through the voting system.
Kenya Airways, Mumias Sugar feel like they were up for, they qualified, but they were not in the list. Or is it among the ones we expect later?
When I look at this plan, I am one of those people who believe that the government has a duty to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, both state-run and private businesses to run. I'm looking here, the nation is saying that 5 of the government-owned corporations are stable and profitable.
Right.
We don't have to privatize those ones, while the rest are cash-strapped. So when we decide to go the private way, I feel like some of these corporations and parastatals are just a burden to our finances.
Okay.
And if we can privatize them, if that is the solution, that's what is going to turn around their profits, then I have no problem them being privatized. Again, it comes to the whole bidding process.
Right.
Is it going to be transparent? Who are going to be the bidders? Is it going to be done in such a manner that we are allowed to talk and to air our views and what we think? The problem is that even with the public participation, the politicians will always have their way. So again, Kenyans don't feel like they are really represented there. Somebody was telling me something about public participation, that actually they don't even refer to us, the public. It will be like a referendum. It will be, we cannot all participate. So when they say public participation, they are referring to professionals and something like that, which again the mama mboga and mtu wa boda boda pale chini never gets a chance to be there.
Right.
So the privatization plan, I don't know how what the parameters they looked into when deciding the first 11 should be these ones and then the rest will be this and this. But for me, first of all, is how we can turn around the profitability of this. Look at Kenya Airways, bailed out every year in, year out. You are making losses, yet you are the biggest, I think, carrier in East Africa. I mean, it's not fair even to the Kenyan public.
Right. Also, I just to add up on you there before Nick joins in is, you know, from my own standpoint, if we are going to lobby for privatization of these companies, public participation is going to be important if we still want the government to have an enabling environment, because you cannot be rallying or championing for an enabling environment for private individuals, and then it ends up we're just championing for some political political investors who are going to be private investors. However, sisi wengine, there's now that tier, as you've said there. Professionals are being invited, but when it comes to the bidding as well, it's people with political interest invited to bid on their own private means. Alafu sisi wengine, when we are lobbying for an enabling environment, we're just lobbying for an enabling environment for these politicians who have invested in some of these parastatals. Hopefully, that bidding is made on a public portal.
Yeah. I'm picking something from Dennis that we actually need to talk about, Richard. The transition period, assuming that we sell one of the parastatal, Kenya Pipeline company, right? What is the employment transition period? Are jobs still going to be secured? Because if someone is going to own his own company, right? I have a right to choose who I'm going to employ, right? Then the government also needs to assure the public that most Kenyans who are working for these parastatals are not going to lose their jobs. So that is also something that needs to be discussed at these initial stages.
Because also, Richard, there was an idea that came up, which was if we can have a situation where the ownership remains with the government and then the management lies in the hands of the private sector, so that it is like a contract. You contract somebody to manage this thing. Is it possible for that to work? Yes. So that it is still a public asset, but then privately managed, if that can cure this. But then again, the same way we are saying our politicians, even by the time they are listing the 11 companies, they have already known who is going to take, who has interest in this one.
But on a lighter note, this government needs to hire this panel because we're giving them
recommendations. I think we should have been on the National Dialogue Committee.
They need to give us jobs.
Right. Okay, so I saw something positive, and I was trying to get it so that we have a positive story to highlight before we move on to the National Dialogue Committee, which is I think the last story I want us to take a look at. But I just want to say that the public still is invited for views. So give your views. Maybe the more we continue to give our views, it's a process, not an event. So hopefully in years to come, the more we do public participation, it gets to make sense at some point. But you're invited to do that, and then Cabinet is going to forward this list to Parliament for approval. Hopefully, Parliament also gets to look at what is necessary and what isn't. There's a turnaround at the coast, and it's coming from the amount of profit or the amount of cargo that has been there. And I was just trying to get that story. I will be getting it in the meantime. Let's get to the National Dialogue Committee. Recommendations, proposals have been placed in front of Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. They've agreed on very important things, according to them. And here, the standard is squeezing it at the right. So some of the proposals here, less travel by government officials. I'd say that is already in effect, given the pronouncements by President William Ruto, except for himself. So I'm hoping it's also here.
I wanted to add that.
Less travel by government officials. They should say less travel by President William Ruto. That's all the government officials we need to...
I was reading earlier on Twitter, Kenyans are very malicious, that President Ruto only comes back to Kenya for conjugal rights.
Oh my God.
People are very malicious. And it was really annoying because, you know why people are saying so, Richard? Because taxpayers' money is being set for this level of travel, right? And no single accountability from one point to another. And it is a sad situation that he tries and hide from it. And I could read frustration from that Kenyan. I don't want to be taken on the record, Richard, because those are not my sentiments. I could read the frustration because Kenyans are really frustrated by the tough economy that we have, the cost of living, the issue of overtaxing, and so many things that are going on. And one of the things that the National Dialogue Committee, and I can see led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, that they don't want to discuss the issue about the cost of living. They don't want to discuss about the issue about cost of fuel. Right. They are putting a blind eye to it, and probably we can discuss this issue the whole day. But reality is, Richard, Kenya has become difficult to live in.
Right. Yeah. We can see here some of let's stick then the proposals, right? Less travel by government officials. That's a good thing. Yes. An increase in top executive offices. You're reducing travel for officials, but you're adding the number of officials.
An increase in the office of the Prime Minister.
Entrenchment into the...
The net impact is zero.
Right, the net impact is zero. Entrenchment of a Prime CS, an office of the opposition, and 2 deputies, and we already have minority leaders in both houses. So that's not a good proposal there. Reduction in fuel prices. That's most likely to happen or not likely to happen?
No, they never agreed on that.
They never agreed on it. Actually, they walked out. The majority side walked out.
In fact, they are telling us that one has been escalated to the principal. So I'm wondering, we had a committee of 14 with the professionals coming to present to you. You are unable to decide, plus a technical team.
Now they have to forward it.
Both sides are technical teams. All these heads could not decide on this one. Then you want to tell us that Raila and Ruto alone will be able to decide on this one.
Let's track back to the increase in top executive offices. So to have the Prime CS, experts are warning that to have the office of the Prime CS entrenched in the Constitution, to have an official office of the opposition leader and 2 deputies, it will take not just a simple process of signatures, but a whole referendum. We have the money to fund this kind of activities and changes.
And you know something, Richard, funny?
Because if once you propose to Raila Odinga that is going to have an official office and 2 deputies, he's probably going to shake hands on it.
I'm forgetting the name of the constituency, Richard. But there's a constituency currently we have. An MP that passed away almost 8 months ago, and we still don't have a sitting IEBC.
I think it is in Northeastern.
Yes. Yeah. And these are the things that one wants to ask, because there's an issue about an audit of last year's presidential elections, that the IEBC, you see, if there's an issue about audit, it simply tells you the IEBC failed on its job, right? That the anxiety that Kenyans are still feeling until today as a result of that simple management committee. Right. So these are some of the issues I think the NADCO committee under Kalonzo Musyoka and Kimani Ichung'wah should have sorted it out. Right.
Oluwabana on Twitter, I don't know if you'll want to answer this one. Okay. Oluwabana is watching us from Juja. It's called Olua Achola. Yeah. Oluwabana is his Twitter name. He's saying, whose questions are they answering? This National Dialogue Committee.
Looks like they're answering their own questions, because the recommendations, the 2 things they disagreed on, the housing levy and the VAT on fuel, are the things that Kenyans wanted to get answers to. Right. And then they agreed on every other thing that touches on elections, touches on positions, and all those things that, to be honest, when Kenyans went to the demonstrations, let me tell you something. If it was not about high cost of commodities in this country, I don't think Raila would have managed to get as much or as many people to the streets. But Kenyans at that time had got some soft spot for him, because they were feeling the pinch. They are feeling even more pinch right now. But what came out of that process to me is very funny. Number one, if you are going to recommend for us a referendum right now, we are from an election. We are recovering from the effects of that election. COVID was there. El Nino is now doing us. Again, another injustice. You get us into a referendum, which is basically campaign mode for some time, and then we head into another election in 2027. Come on. I don't think we can stomach this at this particular point. And then this issue of having official leader of opposition and then a minority leader, and then we have a prime minister, we have a president. Come on, who will be giving us orders? Who will be performing which roles? Even right now, President Ruto is struggling to define roles for Mudavadi and Gachagua. And then we are having an opposition leader with 2 deputies.
Right.
What will they be doing? The next they will tell us that this opposition leader will need a kitchen cabinet like in, like in the UK to counter the cabinet of the day. And then we have another bloated executive, and what the best you can give us is tell us that we'll reduce travels. I mean, the travels, even if you reduce the amount we will save, will not be enough to pay 2 or 3 officials that you are proposing. So on this one, if this guy sat for 90 days, honestly, and begged
come up
us,
with this,
taxpayers' money.
KCP students are better with coming up with results after.
I thought I was really frustrated this morning until I had Dennis.
For me,
you need to have a fire extinguisher here.
For me, to be honest, I think that I think that the recommendations of the National Dialogue Committee, they cannot fly. They don't have wings. They're not going anywhere.
There's a picture here to the Daily Nation that showcases exactly what that situation looks like in the bipartisan talks. So it's a house of cards. Last week, funny enough, I termed the politics in the Republic as a house of cards, or is it succession? Kuna wale wameona succession. Here is an image by Dula. I think it's being shown on the screen there somewhere. We have a caricature of Kalonzo Musyoka. I think that's Kimani Ichung'wah. And then Raila Odinga. I see Rigathi Gachagua's head peeking right there. This other side, not so sure. Who are these 3 other figures on the far right?
Uhuru Kenyatta.
Oh, Uhuru Kenyatta with a microphone.
And we have Eugene Wamalwa
and
Karua there.
It's a house of cards. Yes. What do you make of this picture, gentlemen, as we wrap up this segment?
I'm looking at the cards here, and we have too many cards. First of all, the bipartisan talks, there is some sort of instability. The gentlemen, the guys who are at the table are scrambling to save it from falling. So it looks like things are not really okay on both sides of the divide. Right. They are not talking the same language. And I was seeing a story that even Uhuru Kenyatta even tried to scuttle the talks before the recommendations were given. Martha Karua is saying something else. And then Eugene Wamalwa even
has nothing to say. He's
confused me more because he was in the team and the way he's talking against their own recommendations.
It's like he didn't even attend the discussion.
Or maybe they locked him out when they were writing the recommendations.
Kalonzo Musyoka has something on his head. Are those antennas for Oni Wiper? Oh my goodness.
That's the side of his party.
All right, gentlemen, I think we can't go much further because of time, but that's going to be our last look at what has happened in the newspapers this morning. Grab yourself a copy of the dailies. It's very, very insightful of what is happening all across the country in politics, education, and even El Nino, which we didn't get to talk about. So I'll allow you guys to do your last remarks. And then in that final remark, please include something on El Nino. We have lost lives, 76, according to the government tally, but I know it's more for sure. They've released 20 billion to counties for mitigating this. They were warned earlier on. President William Ruto stood up saying, you know, God has put the rains away. And now they're here and he's saying, you know, God is with us now. We have rain. They mocked us that there's no rain, but now we have rain. What do you have to say about that? And then please give us a final remark because of time.
My final remark will just be on that El Nino. I don't have so much to say this morning. But when it comes to the financing of the mitigation activities, the government said there was some money when the forecast was given. And then right now they're saying there is no money. I think let's find the money that was there the first time. If we can get that, I think we will be able to deal with that. Otherwise, condolences to families. I know 76 people have been lost and 35,000 households, I think, are homeless as we speak this morning. And I hope we get a solution to this as fast as possible.
All right. Thank you very much, Deno.
I want to agree this morning with Dennis that so many families have lost their lives during this El Nino period. And it's very sad that the government are trying to play hero at this last moment. And they're not talking about the lives that have been lost. And the president has set another 7 billion. I was reading here, 7 billion for counties, and still no accountability for the other 10 billion. So those are the questions that we are asking. Where is the taxpayers' money going, right? Where the issues of money moving from one hand to another, and we can simply not account for it. And then finally, because the people of Resambo have sent me here today, Richard, you'll allow me today to say thank you so much to my friends of Resambo. I want to say thank you to Ben Wafula Mwiti, Mary Nganga, and James Gishowi. And finally to my organization, Mount Kenya Colleges University Student Association, under the leadership of our national chairman, Faris Jane. Thank you so much, because they have given me this platform to continuously present them over and over again each and every Tuesday. And saying thank you to our national treasurer, President Eston Maina. Thank you so much.
Your chairman, I need him.
Faris
I need him. I need Faris.
Is available.
Faris is everywhere except here.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere. You let me know.
Biashara Tuesday is here for you.
Yes, because he's also Juja MP Camp 2027.
Okay.
Let's go and tell Koimbora that you are coming for that seat.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Nick Mwadime Mwangi, and thank you, Dennis Omondi, for this exciting session here, and for all of you who've been tuning in to Biashara Tuesday. It's been exciting here on KUTV Rise Today. Remember, we have Monday, Art and Culture, and then I come back here with business on Biashara Tuesday. We wrap it up. Please don't strive, but thrive. This has been an exciting